Normally on a salad, I love to just use lemon juice, olive oil, and salt, but sometimes I crave something a little bit different. I don't like store-bought dressings because they have inflammatory oils like soybean oil and canola oil and high fructose corn syrup. Today I'd like to share with you two different recipes, one for a vegan ranch and one for a vegan Italian version. Ranch is the most popular salad dressing in America, but has a lot of ingredients that are hard on your cholesterol and have a lot of chemicals in them. So I came up with this recipe to satisfy my cravings for something to dip in and to put on salads. Hemp seeds are not only rich in omega-3s, but also are rich in manganese and magnesium. I'm using half a cup. I've got my half a cup of hemp seeds, and I'm going to add half a cup of rice milk. I've got 4 cloves of garlic here. These are medicinal and they add rich flavors and aroma. If all I have is dried parsley, I'll just use 2 teaspoons. Since I have fresh, I'm just using a small handful. Same thing with the dill. I would use 2 teaspoons if I had dried, but I've got some fresh here, so I'm using a small handful. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of onion powder and 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of my pink Himalayan salt, and 1 teaspoon of black pepper. I usually use Bragg's, but the important thing is your apple cider vinegar should say with the mother in it. That means it's rich in enzymes, and I'm adding 1 tablespoon. I'm also adding 1 tablespoon of water to thin it down just a little bit. This is all the ingredients, so now I'm going to go ahead and blend it together. If all you have is dried herbs, this stuff is still amazing, but when you add the fresh herbs, this thing is the bomb. My next dressing is my version of an Italian dressing, which is naturally kind of a zesty, slightly sweet dressing. I've got my nice healthy oil here, extra virgin olive oil, and we're using a half a cup. This is a heart-healthy fat, very rich in polyphenols. I've got a 1/4 cup of water here, and I'm also adding 3 cloves of garlic. You can use lime or lemon juice for this, and I'm going to squeeze out 2 tablespoons worth. Be sure and remove the seeds. We only want the lemon or lime juice. For the sweet component, I'm adding a date, which also adds a little fiber as well. I'm adding a half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of black pepper, half a teaspoon of onion powder, and half of garlic. Normally I would have half a teaspoon of dried dill, but I've got fresh here. Herbs are medicine, and I'm also going to add a half a teaspoon of sage, which I use for antifungal properties. Half a teaspoon of thyme, which is antiviral, and half a teaspoon of oregano, antibacterial. I'm also adding a half a teaspoon of rosemary, which is another antibacterial herb. I'm adding a whole teaspoon of basil, which is a natural chelator, and a teaspoon of parsley. Nutritional yeast adds a wonderful, rich flavor, and I'm adding 2 teaspoons. I'm going to add a little chunk of fresh ginger, and this has some wonderful anti-inflammatory properties in it. I've got my final 2 ingredients here, a half a teaspoon of coriander and a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin. We have a lot of intense flavors here. So now we have 2 wonderful, creamy, vegan salad dressings. Love to hear your comments. Feel free to comment, like, or subscribe below. And until next time, love yourself, eat real food.